For as long as I can remember, I have been the daughter who blended into the wallpaper. 32 years of being the Kingsley no one looked at twice. The one whose achievements landed in drawers while my brother's smallest victories hung in gold frames. The entire content of the video is a fictional work created by the writing team of the Revenge Pulse channel, intended to reflect common conflicts in families and society, helping viewers recognize their emotions and choose a more positive way of living. That night, at my birthday dinner, the script played out exactly as it always had until it didn't. Vivian, my mother, raised her glass in a gesture that looked more like habit than celebration. "Well, at least we are all together," she said, her smile too polished to feel real. Sebastian lounged at the opposite end of the long dining table, the seat my father used to occupy. "Not all," he murmured, eyes glittering. Then he nodded at the small gift-wrapped box beside my plate. "Go on, Charlotte. Open it." I peeled back the paper. Inside was a sleek heritage DNA kit. His grin widened. "Maybe this will finally explain why you never felt like one of us." Vivian laughed too quickly. "Too high. Sebastian, really, no. Mother." He cut in. "Truth is healthy." His gaze pinned me with something sharpened. "Practiced. Besides, Charlotte has always wanted answers." My throat tightened, but I kept my voice even. "This is a birthday present. It is clarity," he said, as if he were granting me a favor. The laughter around the table rose, soft and poisonous. Vivian stared at her wine glass instead of at me. I placed the box down gently. "Thank you," I said, because silence would only feed him. Sebastian leaned back, satisfied. "You are welcome. Think of it as a fresh start." There were 1,000 comebacks I swallowed. Instead, I lifted my glass to finding the truth. I said. My voice did not shake. His smile did. "If you have ever lived in a family where silence carried more weight than affection, you will understand what comes next. Stay with me. Your support means more than you know, and subscribing helps stories like this reach others who need them." That night, the gift on my plate was not a present. It was a warning, and I had finally decided to stop pretending not to see it. I barely slept after the dinner. Vivian's brittle laughter kept replaying in my head, followed by the way Sebastian watched me not amused, not teasing, but calculating. By dawn, I gave up trying to rest and wandered into the attic, a place no one in the family touched unless they needed something forgotten. Dust shifted under my fingers as I opened an old storage box. Beneath yearbooks and brittle report cards, an envelope lay half-hidden. The flap was already torn. The dust around it disturbed far too recently. Inside was a photograph me as a newborn, swaddled, held by a man I did not recognize. He looked tired and gentle in the same breath. On the back, in Vivian's handwriting, were 2 words. "Forgive me." My heartbeat tripped. I walked downstairs and found Vivian in the kitchen, making tea as if last night had never happened. I held the photograph where she could see it. "When did you plan on telling me?" Her hands froze around the mug. "Charlotte, where did you get that?" "You hid it," I said, badly. She shook her head, eyes filling fast. "It was a difficult time. You do not understand. You never gave me a chance to," I answered, keeping my voice steady. "You just let me grow up feeling misplaced." Before she could respond, Sebastian entered, immaculate even this early. "Morning," he said lightly, eyeing the photograph. "Ah, so you found one of Mother's old souvenirs," Vivian whispered. "Sebastian, stop." But he only smiled at me, slow and satisfied. "Maybe that DNA test will help you put the pieces together." I walked past him without another word, carrying the photograph and the DNA kit. If he thought humiliation would break me, he had misunderstood entirely. 5 weeks later, the results arrived while I was eating lunch at my desk. I knew the email mattered the second I saw the sender's name. My hands were steady when I clicked, but something inside me braced for impact. No biological relationship detected with the Kingsley reference samples. And below that, a second line. Potential paternal match identified Alexander Pierce. I whispered the name aloud. It tasted foreign and strangely familiar at the same time. I forwarded nothing. I called no one. Instead, I searched his name, scrolling past articles about his real estate empire, his philanthropic projects, and finally one piece from more than 3 decades ago, Pierce steps in to rescue Kingsley Holdings during recession. I leaned back in my chair, feeling the weight of the truth settle in. Pierce had saved the company around the exact time I was born. Vivian's handwriting "Forgive me" flashed across my mind. By the time I opened the Kingsley family group chat, I no longer felt shaky. I felt ready. I sent a screenshot of the results and typed, "Anyone want to explain this?" Vivian called within seconds. Her voice broke before she finished saying my name. "Delete it. Charlotte, please. Some things were meant to stay buried. You buried them in me," I said quietly. "It was complicated," she whispered. "Your father forgave me. We all moved forward." "No," I replied. "You moved forward." I was left guessing. Before she could answer, a new message appeared from Sebastian. "Well, now you know. This changes things, doesn't it?" I hung up on Vivian and called him. He answered on the first ring. "That was fast. How long have you known?" I asked. He laughed softly. "Since I was 17. Not that it matters. You used it against her." I said. "Against both of us." "I preserved this family," he corrected. "Do you have any idea what Mother would have lost if I had spoken up? And now you bring this out like a weapon." "I just wanted the truth." "No," he said. "You wanted a place here, but you never had one." His certainty hit harder than the DNA report. For the first time, I heard the real threat behind his voice, and I understood that this secret had never been an accident. It had been leverage, and Sebastian had no intention of letting it go. The days after that call felt strangely sharp, as if every memory of my childhood had been lifted out of storage and placed under direct light. Things I once excused now rang with clarity. I met one of Vivian's longtime friends, Margaret Hale, for coffee after she insisted on seeing me. She looked uneasy, stirring her drink far longer than necessary. "Charlotte, Sebastian was asking about estate lawyers months before Richard fell ill," she said quietly. He acted like something big was coming, like decisions had already been made, decisions about what I asked. She hesitated, about the future of the family, about removing complications. My chest tightened. "You mean me?" Margaret didn't deny it. He spoke with confidence he should not have had. On my way home, another moment resurfaced, one I had pushed away years ago. I remembered being 16, sitting at the kitchen counter, overhearing Vivian say, "We can take Charlotte's education fund. She will manage." At the time, I believed it was temporary, a sacrifice for the family. Now I understood it was payment, a silent ransom to keep Sebastian from exposing the truth. That evening, I called a number given to me by a co-worker. Attorney Elena Park answered with a calm, measured voice. "You said this concerns an inheritance dispute. It concerns a pattern," I said, "and a brother who has used a secret to control our family for nearly 18 years. She didn't interrupt as I explained the DNA results. The photograph marked, "Forgive me," Sebastian's threats, and the strange timing around my father's will. When I finished, she said, "You are not imagining the danger. You need representation immediately. And you need to stop speaking to your family without counsel." Her certainty steadied something in me. As I agreed to meet her the next morning, my phone buzzed with a new message, this time from Harold Stenton, my father's attorney. "We need to speak. Your father left specific instructions for you." I arrived at Kingsley Holdings the next week with attorney Elena Park beside me. Her steps were quiet but unshakably confident. Mine were not. The elevator carried us to the 34th floor, the executive boardroom my father once ruled from. I had not set foot there since his funeral. Remember, Elena murmured, you say nothing unless I signal. Today is about disclosure, not reaction. The doors opened. Vivian sat near the far end of the long table, hands clasped so tightly her knuckles looked white. Her eyes darted toward me, then away just as quickly. Sebastian stood by the window, silhouette framed against the Seattle skyline as if he were already the heir apparent. When he turned, his smirk sharpened. Charlotte, he said smoothly, brave of you to show up. I was invited, I replied. He shrugged. So was the truth. Look how well that went. Elena stepped slightly forward, a silent reminder that I was not alone. A moment later, Harold Stenton entered, carrying 2 thick folders. His expression was solemn, almost ceremonial. He waited until everyone was seated before he spoke. Your father anticipated disputes. He began. He left explicit instructions on how this reading should be conducted. Sebastian leaned back, amused. Of course he did. Stenton opened the first folder and read from the top page. I, Richard Kingsley, declare the following distribution of my estate. Vivian's breath hitched. Stenton continued, voice even. 65% of my estate, including my controlling shares in Kingsley Holdings, shall pass to my daughter, Charlotte Kingsley. A stunned silence followed, broken only by Sebastian's abrupt laugh. You cannot be serious, he said. She is not his daughter. We have proof. He looked directly at me, triumphant. Your little genetic surprise ends here. Stenton did not pause. 35% shall pass to my son, Sebastian Kingsley. I object. Sebastian said, pushing to his feet. She cannot inherit his shares. It is fraud. Elena's voice cut in, controlled and cool. Sit down, Mr. Kingsley. Stenton raised a hand, reclaiming the floor. Your father addressed your concern in his own words. He read the next clause slowly, letting each sentence land. I have known since Charlotte was 2 years old that she is not my biological child. I chose to raise her. I chose to love her. And I choose, fully aware of her parentage, to leave her my legacy. Vivian let out a quiet sob. Sebastian stared, mouth open but empty of argument. Stenton lifted the second folder. There is more. He withdrew a stack of documents bound with a red ribbon. 8 months before his death, Mr. Kingsley hired a private investigator to monitor any attempt to manipulate the estate. Sebastian stiffened. Stenton read findings include meetings with 4 estate litigation attorneys, unauthorized withdrawals totaling $65,000 from Mr. Kingsley's personal accounts while he was bedridden, statements to acquaintances regarding removing Charlotte from the equation, and documentation of the purchase of a heritage DNA kit shipped to Mr. Sebastian Kingsley's residence and wrapped as a gift. Vivian covered her mouth. Sebastian, you promised me you. He rounded on her. You knew she was not one of us. Do not pretend innocence now. Elena rose before I could. Mr. Kingsley, attacking your mother will not change the evidence. Stenton continued, unmoved. Additionally, the will contains a no-contest clause. Any challenge made without probable cause results in forfeiture of inheritance. Mr. Kingsley, your previously recorded advances totaling $275,000 would convert to personal debt owed to the estate. Sebastian's attorney leaned toward him urgently. If you contest this, you will lose everything. Sebastian shook him off, breathing hard but saying nothing. His confidence had crumbled into something brittle and dangerous. Stenton closed the folder. Your father left one final note. He unfolded a single handwritten page and read softly, Sebastian, you were given every opportunity to choose integrity. These consequences are of your own making." No one spoke. For the first time in my life, the room did not tilt toward my brother. It tilted toward the truth. Vivian showed up at my apartment the next evening without calling first. She stood in the hallway like someone afraid to cross a threshold, clutching her handbag as if it might anchor her. I stepped aside, and she entered slowly, looking around the modest space as though it were a foreign country. "Charlotte," she began, her voice thin. "I owe you the truth. You owe me more than that," I said, "but start there." She sat on the edge of my couch, fingers twisting together. "Your father and I, we could not conceive. We tried for years. It nearly destroyed us. He felt defective. I felt alone. We separated for a time. I stayed standing. And Alexander Pierce." Her breath trembled. He was Richard's closest friend. He understood the strain we were under. I was grieving a life I thought I would never have. He comforted me, and it went further than it should have. She looked up, eyes shining with guilt. When I discovered I was pregnant, I panicked. Richard returned, ready to fight for our marriage, and I had to tell him the child was not his. My throat tightened. "And he forgave you." "He did more than that," she whispered. "He insisted the child was ours. He said love was a choice, and he chose you. He met with Alexander. They made an agreement with 2 attorneys present. Richard would raise you fully. Alexander would never claim you, but he would help stabilize the company, which was failing at the time." The pieces slid into place, heavy and unavoidable. Vivian wiped her eyes. "I intended to tell you someday, but then Sebastian overheard us arguing when he was 17. He threatened to expose everything. I was terrified of losing the family, the reputation, the illusion that we were whole. So you paid him with my future," I said softly. She flinched. I did not know how to stop him. Every demand felt like another punishment I had earned. I sat across from her. "You protected him from the truth, and you protected yourself from shame. You never protected me." Her face crumpled. "I am sorry. Charlotte, truly, I hear you," I said, "but I need space more than I need apologies." Vivian nodded, accepting it with a quiet resignation. She rose to leave, moving slowly, as though the secrets she had carried for 32 years had finally become too heavy to hold. Elena called the following morning. Her tone was calm, but there was something new beneath its certainty. "Charlotte." I reviewed the documents Stenton released after the will reading. "Your biological father, Alexander Pierce, established a trust in your name more than 3 decades ago. It was designed to activate only if your parentage became part of a legal proceeding or if Richard acknowledged it in his will. Both conditions are now satisfied." I let the words settle. So he planned for this. "All this time." "Yes," she said. "And his attorney has been instructed to contact you. Expect a delivery." The package arrived that afternoon hand-delivered, sealed with an insignia I recognized from Pierce's old foundation. Inside were several legal documents, thick with numbers and clauses I could barely absorb. But beneath them was a small wooden box, worn smooth at the corners. I opened it carefully. A watch rested inside, the leather band aged and softened by years of touch. Beneath it sat a folded letter. I unfolded the page. The handwriting was steady and deliberate. "Charlotte, I could not be your father in the open, but I watched every milestone from a distance. I saw your first recital from the back row. I left before anyone noticed me. I followed your career with pride, not guilt pride." My throat closed as I read on. "I wore this watch every day, every hour. I wondered if you were safe, if you were loved, if you were becoming the person I believed you could be. This watch counted the hours I could not give you. Now, let it count the hours of the life you deserve." I held the watch in my hands. It felt warm, even through my shaking fingers. There were no grand revelations, no dramatic reconciliation, just the quiet truth of a man who loved me from afar and the weight of all the time we never shared. Sebastian unraveled quickly after the will reading. News traveled fast through the board and then through the industry. The lawsuit he attempted was dismissed in less than a week once the no contest clause surfaced. His $275,000 in advances converted instantly into personal debt. When I learned he had also withdrawn $65,000 while our father was bedridden, Elena only said, "If you choose to pursue charges, the state will not hesitate." I did not answer her. Not yet. When Sebastian finally called me, his voice was thin and frayed. "You could fix this," he said. "You could help me. You built this." I replied. "Every piece of it." He exhaled angrily. "You think you deserve that chair, that company you were never meant to carry the Kingsley name." I let the silence stretch. "And yet I am the one carrying it," I said, "because Father trusted who I became, not how I was born." His breath hitched with something close to disbelief. In the weeks that followed, I moved into the role he believed belonged to him. I sat in my father's chair only once before deciding to have it removed, too heavy with ghosts, too tied to a legacy I refused to repeat. I met with department heads, listened to grievances that had been ignored for years, and began reshaping Kingsley Holdings into something transparent, ethical, and sustainable. Some nights I caught myself tracing the worn leather band of Pierce's watch, feeling an unexpected steadiness in the pulse beneath it. I did not know what the future held, but for the first time, the path ahead belonged to me. I called a special board meeting 6 months after the will reading. Word spread quickly, and when Sebastian stepped into the room, he looked smaller than I had ever seen him, tired, thinner, stripped of the arrogance that once filled every doorway he walked through. The board members braced for confrontation, but I gestured toward the empty seat beside me. "Sit," I said. "We have business." He lowered himself cautiously. "If this is about the debt, it is not." I interrupted. "This is about ending the cycle that destroyed our family." He froze. I slid a document toward him, a restoration path. "If you attend therapy for a full year, repay your debts responsibly, and work in the Community Partnerships Division under supervision, I will grant you 5% non-voting shares." His voice cracked. "Why would you offer me anything? Because I am done living in the ruins of choices made before we were born," I said. "And because someone in this family has to stop the bleeding." He pressed a hand over his mouth, struggling with emotion he could not hide. Later that evening, I stood at Cary Park with Pierce's watch warm against my wrist. The city glowed below, steady and alive. I thought of Richard, who chose me, and Pierce, who loved me without being allowed to say so. For 32 years, I waited for someone in the Kingsley family to see me. Now, I finally understood I did not need their recognition to exist fully. If you have ever rebuilt yourself from the pieces someone else broke, stay with me. Your story matters, and subscribing helps these stories reach the people who need them most.